Imagine taking your morning walk after serving your community for decades, only to find yourself staring down the barrel of a police officer's gun. Now imagine that officer confidently walking into court, completely certain he'd be praised for his actions. He had no idea he was about to face the one judge who didn't care about excuses, badges, or empty apologies. By the time the hearing ended, the entire courtroom sat in stunned silence, and one question changed everything. Before we begin, if you enjoy emotional courtroom stories filled with unforgettable twists and powerful moments of justice, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1: A Quiet Morning. The morning sun stretched across the quiet neighborhood of Brookdale. It was the kind of place where people waved to each other from their porches and children rode bicycles without worry. 73-year-old Samuel Carter walked the same route every morning. Everyone knew him. The retired history teacher carried a small paper bag filled with birdseed. Every day he stopped beside a neighborhood pond to feed the ducks. Children loved listening to his stories. Neighbors often joked that Samuel remembered every birthday in town. He smiled more than he spoke. After 40 years of teaching, patience had become part of his personality. That peaceful routine ended on a Tuesday morning. Officer Derek Collins had transferred into the district only 3 weeks earlier, young, ambitious, and desperate to prove himself. Several officers quietly warned him about making quick assumptions. He ignored every piece of advice. As Derek's patrol car rolled through Brookdale, he noticed Samuel walking along the sidewalk carrying his worn leather satchel. "What's in the bag?" Derek muttered. "Without any evidence and without any complaint? Without witnessing any crime?" He made a decision that would change both of their lives. He slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched across the pavement. Samuel turned slowly, confused. Before he could even speak, Officer Collins jumped from the cruiser. "Hands where I can see them!" he shouted. Neighbors froze. A woman watering flowers dropped her garden hose. Children stopped their bicycles. Samuel blinked in disbelief. "Officer, is something wrong?" Instead of answering, Collins pulled out his handgun. "Get on the ground." The entire street fell silent. Samuel looked around, convinced the officer had mistaken him for someone else. "I think you've got the wrong person." "I said get down!" His voice echoed across the neighborhood. An elderly man, no weapon visible, no threatening movement, yet a loaded firearm remained pointed directly at his chest. Samuel slowly raised both hands, his voice barely trembled. "I'll cooperate." Across the street, 16-year-old Maya Thompson had been walking her dog. The moment she saw the gun pointed at Samuel, she instinctively grabbed her phone. She started recording. She didn't know it then. But those few seconds of video would soon become the centerpiece of an unforgettable courtroom battle. Officer Collins ordered Samuel onto his knees. The old man struggled because of arthritis. "Hurry up!" Collins barked. "I have bad knees," Samuel replied softly. The officer stepped closer. "So, now you're refusing lawful orders?" "I'm trying, son." The word son seemed to irritate Collins even more. Within seconds, he grabbed Samuel by the shoulder. The elderly man lost his balance. His satchel fell open. Bird seeds spilled across the sidewalk. Pieces of stale bread rolled into the street. The neighborhood watched in complete disbelief. One little girl whispered to her mother, "Why is the police officer hurting Mr. Carter?" No one had an answer. Officer Collins searched the satchel. Nothing. He searched Samuel's pockets. Nothing. Wallet, reading glasses, house keys, a folded grocery list. No weapon, no drugs, no stolen property, nothing remotely suspicious. The officer's confidence began fading. Samuel quietly asked, "May I stand now?" Instead of apologizing, Collins doubled down. "I'm conducting an investigation." Maya kept recording. She zoomed in. Every expression, every command, every second. Across the street, another neighbor stepped outside with a home security camera already recording from above. Neither recording would become public immediately, but both would soon reveal details the officer never expected anyone to notice. After nearly 15 minutes, Officer Collins finally stepped back. "You're free to go." No apology, no explanation. Samuel slowly picked up the spilled birdseed from the pavement. Several neighbors rushed over to help. One elderly woman hugged him as tears filled her eyes. Samuel forced a smile. It's all right. But everyone knew it wasn't. He finished feeding the ducks that morning, not because he felt peaceful, but because he refused to let humiliation destroy the routine he'd spent years building. Meanwhile, Officer Collins drove away believing the incident was over. He couldn't have been more wrong. Within 48 hours, a lawsuit was filed, and waiting inside the courtroom was someone famous for seeing through weak excuses in minutes. Judge Judy. Officer Collins expected an easy victory. Instead, he was about to discover that confidence without evidence can become the fastest path to public embarrassment. The courthouse buzzed with quiet conversations as spectators filled every available seat. Word had spread quickly. An elderly retired teacher, a traffic stop that wasn't a traffic stop, a police officer who pointed a gun without finding a single piece of evidence. Everyone wanted to know what had really happened. At precisely 10 o'clock, the courtroom doors opened. The bailiff stood tall. All rise. The room instantly fell silent. Judge Judy entered with her usual brisk stride, carrying a thin case file under one arm. She didn't smile. She didn't acknowledge the whispers. She took her seat and adjusted her glasses. Be seated. The courtroom settled. Judge Judy glanced at the plaintiff. You are Mr. Samuel Carter? Yes, Your Honor. She nodded. 73 years old? That's correct. You were taking your morning walk? Yes. She made a brief note before turning toward the defense table. And you're Officer Derek Collins? Yes, Your Honor. How long have you been a police officer? 4 years. And in this department? Just under 1 month. Judge Judy looked at him for a long second. Wonderful. Her voice remained calm. Let's find out why your fourth year of policing somehow resulted in drawing a firearm on a 73-year-old retired school teacher feeding ducks. A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the gallery. Officer Collins shifted in his seat. Judge Judy immediately looked toward the audience. This isn't a comedy club. The room fell silent again. She looked back at Collins. I'm listening. The officer straightened his posture. Your Honor, I believed Mr. Carter matched the description of a suspicious individual reported earlier that morning. Judge Judy interrupted. Believed? Yes. What exactly was the description? A black male carrying a shoulder bag. Judge Judy slowly removed her glasses. That's your description? Collins hesitated. There were additional details. I'm waiting. He was wearing dark clothing. Judge Judy glanced toward Samuel. Mr. Carter wore a light beige sweater in the photographs taken that morning. She raised one eyebrow. Dark clothing? Collins cleared his throat. I may have remembered incorrectly. Judge Judy didn't respond. Instead, she reached for another document. The dispatch report is sitting in front of me. She paused. It says the caller reported a man approximately 30 years old wearing a black hoodie and blue jeans. Silence. Judge Judy looked directly at Collins. Mr. Carter is 73. Yes. He wasn't wearing a hoodie. No. He wasn't wearing blue jeans. No. He was wearing a tan sweater. Yes. So tell me precisely what matched. The courtroom became so quiet that the turning of paper sounded loud. Officer Collins searched for words. He had a shoulder bag. Judge Judy stared at him. A shoulder bag. Yes, she leaned back. Do you have any idea how many people walk around carrying shoulder bags every single day? No answer. I asked you a question. Quite a few. Quite a few? She folded her hands. So carrying a shoulder bag now justifies pointing a loaded firearm at someone's chest? No, Your Honor. Then why did you do it? The officer swallowed. I believed there was an immediate threat. Judge Judy looked at Samuel. Did you threaten him? No. Did you yell? No. Did you run? No. Did you refuse to stop? No. Judge Judy turned back. So where exactly was the immediate threat? Collins hesitated again. I couldn't know whether he was armed, Judge Judy answered before he could continue. You also couldn't know whether he wasn't. Another pause. Police work isn't about imagination, Officer Collins. It's about facts. The courtroom remained perfectly still. Judge Judy picked up another page. You wrote in your report that Mr. Carter repeatedly refused your commands. Yes, she looked toward Samuel. Did you? Samuel spoke calmly. I told him I had arthritis and couldn't kneel quickly. Judge Judy nodded. Reasonable. She looked back toward Collins. So arthritis equals resisting arrest? No, that's not what your report says. The officer shifted again. I perceived hesitation. Judge Judy leaned forward. No. She tapped the report with one finger. You interpreted physical limitation as defiance. Another long silence. Then came the first witness. Maya Thompson. The teenage girl nervously approached the witness stand. She was sworn in. Judge Judy smiled slightly. Relax. You aren't on trial. Maya nodded. Judge Judy asked the first question. Were you present that morning? Yes. What did you see? I saw Officer Collins jump out of his car with his gun already pointed. You never saw Mr. Carter threaten him? No. Did you see any weapon? No. Did Mr. Carter obey? Yes. What made you begin recording? Maya looked toward Samuel. Because I was scared for him. The courtroom listened carefully. He looked confused. He kept asking what he'd done. And the officer just kept yelling. Judge Judy nodded slowly. Did you stop recording? Only after Mr. Carter was allowed to leave. The defense attorney stood. Objection. The witness is offering opinions. Judge Judy looked over. No. She's describing exactly what she observed. Overruled. The attorney sat down. Judge Judy addressed Maya again. You still have that recording? Yes. Has it been edited? No. Has anyone altered it? No. Judge Judy turned toward the bailiff. I'd like to see it. The courtroom lights dimmed. Every eye shifted toward the courtroom monitor. Officer Collins remained expressionless, at least on the outside. Inside, his confidence was beginning to crack, because unlike written reports, unlike fading memories, unlike carefully rehearsed testimony, video doesn't forget. And in less than 30 seconds, everyone in that courtroom would see exactly what happened before a single word was spoken between the officer and Samuel Carter. Officer Collins had insisted he reacted to a threat. The recording was about to reveal who created the tension and who never posed one in the first place. The screen flickered to life. Judge Judy folded her hands. Let's watch. The courtroom lights dimmed. A hush settled over the gallery as the first frame of Maya Thompson's cell phone video appeared on the courtroom monitor. The recording was slightly shaky. The sound of birds chirping filled the room. Then, a police cruiser suddenly screeched to a stop. Without hesitation, Officer Derek Collins threw open the driver's door. Before Samuel Carter had even turned around completely, Collins already had his handgun drawn. His voice exploded through the phone's tiny microphone. Hands where I can see them! Several people in the courtroom instinctively looked toward Samuel. The elderly man in the video appeared startled, not aggressive. He slowly lifted both hands. His paper bag dangled from trembling fingers. Judge Judy raised one finger. Pause it. The video froze. She looked directly at Officer Collins. Tell me exactly what threatening movement you observed before you drew your weapon. Collins shifted in his chair. I believed he was reaching into the shoulder bag. Judge Judy pressed a button on the monitor. The footage rolled back a few seconds. Again, Samuel wasn't reaching into the bag. He was simply turning around after hearing tires screech behind him. She played it a third time. The same result. Judge Judy looked over the rim of her glasses. I don't see what you're describing. The officer cleared his throat. It happened very quickly. It certainly did, Judge Judy replied. You had your firearm pointed before Mr. Carter even faced you. No response. She resumed the video. Samuel's calm voice echoed through the courtroom. Officer, is something wrong? Instead of answering, Collins shouted again, Get on the ground. The courtroom watched Samuel hesitate, not out of defiance, but confusion. I think you've got the wrong person. I said, get down. Even through the phone speaker, the command sounded harsh. Judge Judy paused the recording again. Mr. Carter never threatened you. No. He never advanced toward you. No. He asked a question. Yes. She nodded. So your response to a confused 73-year-old man asking what was happening was to scream louder. The officer remained silent. The video continued. Samuel carefully lowered himself toward the pavement. His movements were painfully slow. Judge Judy noticed something. Pause. She leaned closer to the screen. You can actually see him holding onto his knee. Samuel nodded quietly. That's my arthritis. Judge Judy looked toward Collins. You testified he delayed your commands. Yes. From what I see, he was physically struggling. Another uncomfortable silence. Then came the moment that made the gallery gasp. The satchel slipped. Birdseed poured across the sidewalk. Small pieces of bread scattered into the street. There was no weapon, no drugs, nothing remotely dangerous, only birdseed. Judge Judy allowed the recording to continue. The audio picked up the voices of nearby children. One little girl could clearly be heard asking, Mommy, why does that policeman have a gun? No one answered. Even in the courtroom, no one could. Judge Judy stopped the video once more. Officer Collins. Yes, Your Honor. When did you first realize Mr. Carter wasn't the suspect? Collins hesitated. After searching the bag. So, after discovering bird seed? Yes. And after searching his pockets? Yes. You found nothing. No weapon? No. No stolen property? No. No drugs? No. Judge Judy leaned back. Did you apologize? No. Why not? I was still conducting an investigation. Judge Judy tilted her head. What investigation? The officer hesitated again. I wanted to be certain. Certain of what? No answer came. Judge Judy let the silence linger. Sometimes silence exposed more than questions ever could. Then the defense attorney stood. Your Honor, hindsight makes situations appear simpler than they are. Judge Judy looked at him. I agree. Hindsight is clearer. She pointed toward the frozen video. But this isn't hindsight. This is real time. We are literally watching what your client saw. The attorney slowly sat back down. Judge Judy turned toward the bailiff. I understand there's another recording. Yes, Your Honor. A nearby home security camera. Samuel's attorney stood. Correct. It captures the incident from across the street. Judge Judy smiled faintly. Excellent. I always appreciate multiple camera angles. The second video appeared. Unlike the cell phone footage, this one overlooked the entire block from above. It showed the patrol car approaching long before the stop. Judge Judy watched carefully. Officer Collins slowed his cruiser as he spotted Samuel. The elderly man was simply walking, nothing unusual. Then something caught Judge Judy's attention. Pause. She narrowed her eyes. Zoom in. The technician enlarged the image. Officer Collins remained inside his cruiser for several seconds before getting out. Judge Judy noticed his head moving. He wasn't watching Samuel's hands. He wasn't observing suspicious behavior. He was typing on the computer mounted inside the patrol car. She looked toward the defense. Can anyone tell me what he's doing? The defense attorney answered. He may have been checking dispatch information. Judge Judy nodded. That's possible. She turned toward Collins. Were you reviewing the suspect description before approaching? Yes. So at that moment, you already knew dispatch described a 30-year-old male in a black hoodie. Yes. Judge Judy's expression hardened. And yet, she pointed toward the frozen image of Samuel. You still chose to confront a 73-year-old man in a tan sweater. Collins looked down. The courtroom remained absolutely still. Judge Judy didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. So this wasn't a split-second mistake. Her words landed heavily. You had time. You had information. And you had an opportunity to realize Mr. Carter didn't match the description. She closed the file in front of her. But you proceeded anyway. For the first time since the hearing began, Officer Collins had no explanation at all. The courtroom sensed the shift. The confidence he carried into court was gone. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She looked toward Samuel. Mr. Carter, yes, Your Honor. How did this incident affect you? The elderly teacher took a slow breath. His answer would leave the entire courtroom speechless. The next part will focus on Samuel Carter's emotional testimony, the psychological impact of the encounter, and Judge Judy uncovering another damaging inconsistency in Officer Collins's written report that further undermines his credibility. The courtroom remained silent. Judge Judy looked toward Samuel Carter. Mr. Carter. The elderly man adjusted his glasses before speaking. I've spent 40 years teaching children to respect the law. His voice was calm. I always told them that police officers have a difficult job and that they deserve cooperation. He paused. I still believe that. The courtroom listened closely. But that morning, I looked into the barrel of a gun, and for the first time in my life, I honestly thought I might not make it home. Several people lowered their heads. Samuel continued. My grandchildren asked me later why I seemed different. I couldn't answer them. I haven't walked to the pond alone since. I still feed the ducks, but now I look over my shoulder every few seconds. I've never been afraid of my own neighborhood until that day. The courtroom was completely still. Judge Judy nodded respectfully. Thank you, Mr. Carter. She turned back toward Officer Collins. Officer Collins, stand up. He slowly rose. I've reviewed your testimony. I've reviewed your written report. I've reviewed 2 separate videos. And frankly, they don't tell the same story. She picked up his incident report. In your report, you wrote that Mr. Carter repeatedly ignored your commands. She looked up. The video shows he immediately raised both hands. You wrote that he reached toward his bag. The video shows he never did. You wrote that he matched the suspect description. The dispatch record describes a 30-year-old man wearing a black hoodie. She pointed toward Samuel. Mr. Carter is 73 years old and was wearing a tan sweater. She placed the report back on the bench. Those aren't small inconsistencies. They're major ones. The defense attorney stood. Your Honor, Officer Collins was acting under stressful circumstances. Judge Judy looked directly at him. Stress explains mistakes. It does not excuse inventing facts after the incident. The attorney quietly sat down. Judge Judy continued. Police officers are entrusted with extraordinary authority. That authority carries extraordinary responsibility. A badge is not permission to ignore facts. It is a promise to follow them. She looked at Collins. You had every opportunity to slow down. You had every opportunity to assess the situation. You had every opportunity to recognize that Mr. Carter did not match the suspect you were supposedly looking for. You failed. Collins lowered his head. For the first time that morning, he spoke without confidence. I made a mistake. Judge Judy responded immediately. No, a mistake is writing the wrong date on a form. What happened here was a series of poor decisions. You escalated without adequate justification. You continued after discovering no evidence. And according to the testimony and recordings presented in this courtroom, you never apologized. Collins quietly replied, No, Your Honor. Judge Judy folded her hands. Mr. Carter came into this courtroom asking for accountability. I believe he has earned it. She looked at Samuel. Judgment is entered in favor of the plaintiff. She awarded damages for the emotional distress and other losses supported by the evidence presented in this fictional case. Then she turned once more toward Officer Collins. I hope this experience teaches you something every police officer should remember. Respect is not demanded through fear. It is earned through fairness. She struck the gavel. Case closed. The courtroom remained silent for a moment. Then Samuel slowly stood. As he walked toward the exit, Maya Thompson approached him. I'm glad I recorded it, she said softly. Samuel smiled. So am I. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded the steps. Cameras flashed, microphones reached forward. Samuel stopped for just one question. A reporter asked, After everything that happened, do you still believe in justice? Samuel smiled gently. I believe justice depends on people having the courage to tell the truth. And today, the truth was heard. With that, he walked away. The crowd watched in respectful silence. The man who had been humiliated on a quiet morning left the courthouse with his dignity restored. Officer Collins exited through another door, avoiding the cameras. He had entered the courtroom believing his badge would answer every question. Instead, the evidence answered them all. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives through patience, facts, and the courage of ordinary people who refuse to look away. The end. Disclaimer. This story is entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes. It is not based on real events or intended to depict any actual legal proceeding or individual. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental. This concludes the fictional courtroom story with the case resolved in court.